Australia, the land down under, is experiencing a poker boom ignited by a native son and reigning world champion, Joe Hacham. Melbourne's spectacular Crown Casino plays host to the largest poker tournament in Australian history, boasting a prize pool of more than $3 million, with $1 million going to the winner. Recognized as one of the world's premier tournaments, the event has drawn the biggest names in the game from around the globe to compete with the best from down under and see who will come out on top in the partypoker.net Aussie Millions. Well, with less than 70 players remaining from a field of over 400, the competition has seen the exit of some of the game's biggest names. But one early favorite, the Cowboy, Kenna James, hasn't disappointed. Kenna brings his gregarious persona and formidable skills to our feature table, along with last year's champion, Jamil Dia, and poker's fiercest competitor, Phil Ivey. It's the partypoker.net Aussie Millions. And we welcome you to Melbourne, Australia. We are at the Crown Casino. I'm Barry Tompkins, along with world-renowned poker expert Michael Konik. Here's the chip count at the main table. Phil Ivey, and it seems he's been there forever. Still our chip leader. Kenna James been playing very well. Jamil Dia, he won all the money last year. Jerry Fitt is right there. The short stack is Daniel Cairns. And with that, we begin play on this session.
And there's Kathy Liebert, the formidable American. She has not been involved in hardly anything, Barry, and you know, the time to sit around and wait is starting to pass. The blinds are 1 in 2,000 with a 300 ante. You gotta mix it up.
Cool. Yeah, you ever find a hand you don't like?
Kenna James will always give you a running commentary, talking to Jamil Dia, saying, ever find a hand you didn't like?
Dia, smooth called in the small blind. Kenna James in the big blind is going to put in a raise and see if Dia really does want to tangle with a 6-3.
The raise is to 9,000.
And Dia may think a 9,000 investment is worth it if he can snap off a big hand. James has a lot of chips to play for.
Dia's hesitating a little bit, not going to play this hand. So Kenna James is really rolling right now. Why don't we take a minute, just talk about this game of Texas Hold'em.
Yeah, the Aussie Millions uses no limit Texas Hold'em. Each player gets 2 down cards, the whole cards. Then they may call, raise, or fold. The dealer then puts out 3 community cards, which we call the flop. There's more betting, raising, or folding. And a 4th card, the turn card. Another round of betting. And finally, the ultimate card, the river card. Players can move all their chips at any time. This is called all in. At the end of the hand, players reveal their whole cards, and the best 5-card hand wins and takes the pot.
I spike up my hair, make sure it don't look like toupee. Toupee.
Well, his hair's awake now. His game's been awake. I think Galanis' arms have gotten shorter.
Now, this is the point in the tournament where one tends to get those alligator arms. You don't want to be shoving too many chips and putting them at risk when you're getting real close to the prize money.
Jamil Dia doesn't have alligator arms, though. He seems to play every hand. 8,000 was the bet to James, and he called.
Kathy Liebert with a mighty 3 deuce is probably going to have to exit the proceedings.
King Jack from Cairns. Now, he hasn't had a lot to play either. Might consider this, but doesn't.
2 players.
2 players to the flop, James and Dia, experienced players. Here is the flop, 8 deuce 6 on the flop. Not much for either player.
8,000. 8,000.
8,000 from Dia again.
Dia, the reigning champion of the Aussie Millions, plays a power poker game, constantly putting pressure on his opponents. Kenna James calls, hoping to take advantage of his superior position. He gets to act last. Now Dia checks. James could interpret that as a sign of weakness. Dia has taken the foot off the accelerator and slowed down a little bit. This could be James's spot to take the lead.
I think that's exactly right, Michael. And 23,000 is the bet to Dia.
Now remember, Kenna James has nothing at this point, merely a king high. And Jamil Dia's ace high is in fact the best hand right now. But his betting pattern seems to indicate he's not real confident with merely an ace high. Remember, if Kenna James simply has a deuce in his hand, Kenna James would be the leader right now. Dia doesn't know what his opponent has. All he knows is if he calls here, on the next card he'll have to call again, and so he says adieu.
He does say adieu, and on the other hand, Kenna James saying thank you very much. So Kenna James is really rolling right at the moment. And Dia will just have to wait for another day. Bonus coverage now as Mark Voss is all in against Joe Hacham, the World Series of Poker champion.
And on the flop, Mark Voss has middle pair. Joe Hacham is going to have to spike an ace or a queen to eliminate Mark Voss. Well, now he's got a straight draw as well. Any ace, queen, or 10.
It is a 6, and Mark Voss doubles up.
And it is a 6, and Mark Voss has doubled up against Joe Hacham.
This is the look of a befuddled, amused, and confused human being.
And that is the look of one who is not amused.
Yes, not amused and not confused. Well, the partypoker.net Aussie Millions are brought to you by partypoker.net, the world's largest poker school. Welcome back to the partypoker.net Aussie Millions. Now let's take a look at the structure for this year's tournament. We start with 418 players, each putting up $10,000 for the buy-in. The total prize pool is over $3 million with a payout to the top 48 places. Michael, this is the point in the tournament, I have to think, that we start to separate the wheat from the chaff. We began with over 400. We're down to less than 70.
Yeah, fewer than 20 eliminations left, and everybody's going to be in the money. At this point, the big stacks start feasting on the small stacks. When there are players at your table who you can tell are sweating the money, that's the time to take advantage. In poker, you're always looking for moments of weakness. This is the time in the tournament when the big guys get even bigger.
I don't think there's any question about it. This is a pivotal point in this tournament, but it does seem players not at all awed by the guys that you always refer to as the sharks. Let's get to the action. Well, I doubt there's anyone playing this game who has more the respect of his peers than this man right here, talking, of course, about Phil Ivey. He has won everything. He has total respect of everybody that plays against him. They all seem to be in awe of his talent. Everybody loves him. Nobody wants to hook up with him.
It's a special challenge when you go against Phil Ivey. So, a bit nervous.
Well, I don't really pay too much attention to the awe factor.
I played an entire day at the same table as Phil Ivey, but you know, somehow I managed to survive.
I don't really put too much into any of that stuff. I really try to concentrate on playing my game and taking my time, taking chances when necessary, and doing what I got to do to win this tournament.
Well, Phil Ivey's to my immediate left, so I've got to be very wary.
One thing I've learned about poker a long time ago is that you really can't take it personally. I mean, once you start taking things personally, things have a way of biting you. Really, all that matters is my table and how I'm doing.
And that expression, of course, is part of what makes him a great player. It's an expression that just doesn't change.
And if there's anything more frightening than having Phil Ivey at your table, it's having Phil Ivey at your table with a bunch of chips.
Well, that's exactly right.
But Jerry Fitt has picked up the pocket Cowboys. Phil Ivey behind him with a pair of sevens. Might feel compelled to call. He does. We got a nice pot brewing here, about 30,000 in it.
Now Fitt thinking, what do I do now? Here's the flop, 3, 4, 5.
That's a dangerous flop for Phil Ivey. No overcards. He may think that his sevens are good. Fit leads out with the kings. 20,000. And that's an amount we've seen him bluff before. Phil Ivey will remember that that seems to be an amount that Fit likes to toss in as a tester. Looks like he's considering a call here. Or no, he's raising.
Bold move from Phil Ivey here. You could see a decided underdog.
Now, for Jerry Fit, that raise is actually a little bit more comforting than if Phil Ivey would have just called, I think. Because if Phil Ivey turned a set of 5s or 4s or 3s, it's more likely that he would just call and keep his customer around. So I think Jerry Fitz got to like his hand right here, and he should. He is leading big time.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to let those kings go.
No, the question is, does he want to merely call or raise? And I think he should raise here. This is a nice, healthy 120,000 chip pot. A real big one for Jerry Fit to take down. And I think if he does re-raise here, he's got a good chance of ending the hand.
Long thinking process here for Jerry Fit against the guy that most people feel the best player in the world right now.
I'm all in. All in.
All in.
How much? Count it.
And Phil Ivey says, how much?
Well, Fit looks to have about 170,000. So that's an additional 110 or 20,000 more for Phil Ivey to call. I think Phil Ivey could fold this hand. He can get away from it here.
So,
then again, he's getting about 3 to 1 on a call. Even if he knows he's facing the kind of hand he's facing, the pot odds could warrant a call.
Well, it's a big moment for Phil Ivey. What he decides to do, we'll find out on the other side of this. Welcome back to partypoker.net, the Aussie Millions. Crown Casino here in Melbourne, and we have an early confrontation here as Jerry Fit has gone all in with his pair of kings against Phil Ivey's pair of 7s. And decision time for Ivey.
Phil Ivey would have to call an additional 122,000. Now, you see there's 291,000 in the pot. That means he's getting less than 3 to 1 on his call. And you can see the odds there in the corner, Barry. Jerry Fit is slightly more than a 3 to 1 favorite. So, mathematically, Phil Ivey is not getting the right price to call here. But he doesn't know that Jerry Fit has kings. He knows that's one of the possible hands Jerry could have, but Jerry could also be getting very bold with an ace-king. Jerry could be getting very bold with a pair of 6s. Oh, and Phil Ivey is going to call.
Well,
I don't think he's going to like it.
No, a bold move, and he saw that look on Phil Ivey's face, and that's a face that doesn't usually crack, but it did give you a glimmer of what his thought process is.
And this is the largest pot of the tournament so far. If Jerry Fit can hang on, he will be the new chip leader at our table.
The jack on the turn does no good to Phil Ivey.
Ivey needs a 6 or a 7.
And here is the river card. It's a king, and Fit is going to win this hand.
Huge double up for Jerry Fit. And Barry, you've referenced that sort of icy demeanor of Phil Ivey. Take a look at him. That's not the usual Phil Ivey. There's a human being there, and he's not happy.
Yeah, he's questioning himself, no question about it. So look at the chip count now. Ivey's dropped first to 4th, Fit, the big chip leader. Kenna James is right there. Jamil Dia, the defending champion, just under 300,000. Daniel Cairns has been short stacked for a long time. Still is.
Kathy Liebert is just not getting any tickets, and with the blinds at 1,200 and 2,400 with a 400 ante, She can't afford to sit around too much, nor can Mr. Cairns.
And Ivey raises 8,000 on a 9-7.
He's on the button, taking advantage of his superior position. Kenna James is in the big blind. It will cost him an additional 5,600 to see a flop,
which he will do. James, slight favorite. Here is the flop. King 6-4. Not much for anybody.
That's 12,000.
12,000 is the bet to Kenna James.
Ivey has merely a 9 high, but he does have the button. James knows that if he calls here with his weak ace, he'll probably have to face another bet on the turn and river, meaning he'll have to improve his hand to win.
Deep breath from Kenna James, and he's going to let it go, and Ivey is going to win this. Nice little comeback hand for Phil Ivey.
Well, he'll need about 15 more of those to recoup the 413,000 that was lost last hand.
Little bonus coverage now as we take you out to one of our outer tables. Scott Kilcullen all in against Scott Fishman.
And it looks like Kilcullen has a little lucky talisman in it, perhaps a photo of his family. Yeah, he gives it a kiss. And he might want to kiss his cards too, because those aces now are a 9-1 favorite. Fishman is going to need a queen. One of the 2 black queens remaining.
Does not get it, so Kilcullen will double.
And another Aussie scores one for the home team, while the traveling American, Fishman, takes a big hit.
Welcome back to the partypoker.net Aussie Millions. A whole lot of money at stake here, and we've got an all-star table that we're looking at today. And we mentioned this earlier, but Kathy Liebert just has not had the best of it, just has not had cards with which she could get involved. And so all she could do is tread a little bit of water and hope things turn her way, and do so in a big hurry. But this is a woman with great poker experience.
Well, I think that both Phil Ivey and Kenna James will be playing very aggressively. I expect we'll see a lot of action at today's table. It's very tough to play against a person that has a lot of chips, because they're not afraid of playing a pot with you. They can bust you, but you can't really hurt them too badly. And it's going to be tough to decide whether I want to play solid and conservative, or whether to take a little more aggressive stance.
Well, Barry Tompkins, thus far, the decision seems to have been very clear. Kathy Liebert has played very conservatively, not aggressively, and while her opponents have been picking up hands like that, ace-king, she's had a litany of 7-3 and ace-4. Sooner or later, though, she's going to have to mix it up.
Yeah, things have just not happened for her that would allow her to get involved. Well, how about now?
And I'm going to tell you, that's going to look huge to Kathy Liebert. There she goes.
All in. Got to be aggressive when you can. She's had no chance to be aggressive thus far, but here she is.
And that's by far the biggest hand that Kathy Liebert has looked at. Jamil Dia needs to know that Kathy Liebert has been a very passive presence.
Yeah, cool.
But apparently he didn't notice that. On the other hand, let's be fair here. Dia knows that his ace-king is probably only a small underdog to every hand out there except the pairs of kings and aces. So he's willing to gamble with the short stack.
Right, and he's got plenty to gamble with, which is exactly what Kathy Liebert was talking about earlier.
We called a coin flip, but Liebert the clear favorite.
And she
now
catches
she's a
another
huge
jack.
favorite. Dia does have a straight draw. A 10 would complete a straight for him, but Kathy Liebert is a big, big favorite to double through.
3 on the turn, no good for Dia.
He'll need that 10.
And it is an ace, and Kathy Liebert has doubled up. And so when she does get involved, she makes good on it. And for Jamil Dia, he had plenty of chips to play with, just testing Kathy Liebert. He comes up on a short end this time, and Liebert thus becomes a player again. Bonus coverage now as we take it to one of the outer tables where Sam Youssef is all in against Shannon Shore.
And what a terrible, brutal flop for Youssef. He flopped 3 queens. His opponent flopped a full house. Shore has 2s full of queens. Youssef has a few outs, and he gets it! Oh, my goodness.
And the expression on the face of Shannon Shore tells you everything you need to know. Sometimes just the luck of the draw, and in that case, Sam Youssef made good on it. Kenna James, a 10-9 suited.
Now, Kenna is first to act here. 10-9 suited is normally the kind of hand you want to play in late position, like on the button, but Kenna's liable to play any 2 cards, any place.
Anthony Liebert saying, I wasn't complaining.
Call.
Galanis, another guy who hasn't had a lot of hands to play, but he will participate in this. Fit gets out of the way. Ivy 7-8 suited. Phil loves these kind of hands.
Yeah, and Kenna James' opening raise was very, very small. Most of the time, players here will raise 3 or 4 times the big blind. Kenna just did one of these strange little tiny raises, and he's giving the blinds a pretty good price to try to spike a hand on the flop.
Well, Dia calls, so we got 4 players going to the flop, and here is the flop: 3-4 ace, couple of clubs.
Now, Kenna James acted as though he had something like ace-king or ace-queen before the flop, but he doesn't want to follow through. Nobody's showing any strength.
No, check all the way around. Now a 7, so that gives 3 players pairs.
Yeah, and that should be an action card. And Jamil Dia with the best hand right now because he has the highest kicker, the king. And Ivey and Galanis with identical hands at best could only split if an 8 came. Well, now that Galanis folds, Ivey could hope to spike that 8 and take the pot. And you see that he has a 13% chance of splitting as well. Oh, and there is a split card. Now both players have 4s and 7s with an ace kicker. Jamil Dia's king is counterfeited. Bad break for him. Phil Ivey gets a little lucky.
Guess I shouldn't have folded my 7-8.
You had 7-8 also?
Honest wishing he would have stuck around.
That's nice. It's nice for some. 7-8, 7-8.
Little editorial comment from the Cowboy.
There's a foundation to poker that everyone has to master. And partypoker.net is a fantastic place to do this. You learn the value of different hands. You learn how to play different kinds of games. If you want to call yourself a poker player, you have to have a certain amount of experience at the tables. Partypoker.net is a great place to do that.
Well, Nick Alanis is in there against some of the giants, and we're coming back. Welcome back. Partypoker.net, Aussie Millions. And we are at the Crown Casino here in Melbourne. Barry Tompkins, Michael Konik alongside, telling you all about it. The poker play has been outstanding. Little bonus coverage now. We're going to take you outside where Mark Voss once again is all in against Joe Hacham. Voss with a pair of queens against Hacham's Jack-10 suited.
And the world champion will need a heart or a 9 to eliminate Mark Voss. Voss is urging the dealer, hold him, hold him. And it works.
It did. Voss will double up, and he does so through the defending World Series of Poker champion. So Mark Voss holding his own against one of the better players in the world.
Those magic fingers.
The fingers of Antonio Esfandiari. Meanwhile, back at the main table, the play continues here. Galanis has not had the best of things since sitting down at this table. Ace 4 for Fit.
All right. 12,000.
The raise is 12,000 from Fit right into the teeth of Phil Ivey's King-Queen. And a quick call from Ivey. And Dia looking at an ace-queen. We could have a little confrontation here.
Yeah, now that ace-queen looks a lot less attractive when you have both a raiser and a caller in front of you. With the ace-queen, you like to be the aggressor. You really don't like to call raises there, especially when there are two players that are representing good hands.
Close.
There's the call from Dia. Kenna James thinking, what am I doing?
Well, I'll tell you who's really thinking that is Jerry Fitz. Right now, he raised an early position with an ace-4, got called in 2 spots. He can't really like his hand very much.
And he is the underdog, as you see. Three to the flop. On the flop, pair of 4s and a 6. I think Fitz gonna like that, huh?
Yeah.
And a check.
Boy, what a magic flop for a raggedy hand. 2 checks. Jamil Dia might start liking his ace-queen a little bit more now. He's going to test the waters, it looks like.
21-5 to Jerry Fitz.
Fitz is out of position, meaning he will have to act first on the turn card. So he might want to take the lead here, or he might want to slow play. There's Phil Ivey to contend with behind him. Oh, and he's going to raise. There's about 64,000 in the
60
pot.
more.
And he raises about the size of the pot. So a total now to Phil Ivey of almost 82,000 to call. Surely he will fold his king-queen. And I can't see Jamil Dia calling a re-raise here. I think Jamil Dia's bet was a tester. He got the answer he was looking for. And I think Jerry Fitz is going to get about all he can out of his ace-4. And honestly, Barry, when you have a poor hand like that that ends up flopping big, you need to maximize value, and I'm not sure that Jerry Fitz did. He got an extra 20,000 out of Jamil Dia. Perhaps by calling, he could have gotten a little bit more. Now, I could be wrong about this. Jamil Dia might just say, I don't believe you, and he might re-raise him, and then Jerry Fitz is going to be real happy that he raised. But I can't see Dia calling here.
A lot of contemplation.
Just you and me.
It's you or me.
Jerry should not have said that. I really don't think he should have said that. I think he has sent yet another message to Jamil Dia that ace-queen is no good, and it's time to play another hand.
And you're absolutely right. Good call, Michael. As Jamil Dia just says, I'm not playing this hand. I will look elsewhere. And Jerry Fitz, still a pretty handsome payday, at least on this particular hand for him. So Jerry Fitz, who has been right up amongst the leaders for the entire run of this tournament, remains so at this table. Lots more to come from Melbourne. Don't go away. A beautiful night here in Melbourne, Australia, as you look across the Yarra River at the city of Melbourne. We'll remind you the partypoker.net Aussie Millions are brought to you by partypoker.net, the world's largest poker school. Play continuing at our main table now, and no secrets amongst these players, and cream, if you will, starting to rise to the surface.
And we are getting very close to the prize money. And those who are on the short stack have a big decision to make. Do they play to try to win the Aussie Millions, or do they play to just try to sneak in the back door of the prize money? That man is interested in one place only.
You're right.
Is that okay?
And in late position, James is, well, he's attempting to make the minimum raise. Looks like he shorted the pot a little bit.
I know where I stand.
I think
you do have to make it 48.
Yeah, Kathy Liebert noticed that.
How much is it?
The point is, Barry, that Kenna James on blinds of 12 and 2400 is trying to only raise to 4800. It's the nefarious double raise, and that often just doesn't work in no limit hold'em. On the other hand, if nobody wants to play with him, he will be able to steal the blinds for a very cheap price.
Kathy Liebert's going to play, though.
Liebert has position. She's on the button. She's got a fairly decent hand.
She calls.
Cairns in the small blind would get a discount, but doesn't want to play with a king deuce, nor does Galanis with a jack 3. Liebert with the best hand and the best position.
And now the flop, and Liebert has picked up another king. How do you like that?
Great flop, Kathy Liebert. Top pair, open-ended straight draw. She'll want to bet this for value, just in case Kenna James has a diamond draw. Doesn't want to let him see it for free. And that will be the end of the 5-4.
Exactly, as James leaves it for Liebert to take, and all of a sudden, Kathy Liebert starting to work her way into this contest here, as she has gotten better cards and played them extremely well. Right now, we are going to take you outside for some bonus coverage where Jim Keating is all in against Billy Sukar.
And you might be wondering how an ace-deuce gets in an all-in confrontation, gets a pair of queens. Well, when you get short Barry and you see an ace, sometimes you got to... Oh, look at this! Oh, my goodness. And Keating has spiked 2 pair. Sukar's going to need a queen.
Does not get it here.
Well, a spade could work, too. A spade or a queen.
No. And so Keating has doubled up. And takes you back to the old saying, there's a Sukar born every minute. Back to our main table now. Sometimes you got to go for the cheap gag, you know?
You are very punny, Barry.
Ooh. Phil Matthews has stepped into the fray here at this table, and he's in some pretty high cotton with these players. Ooh, ace-king suited for James.
$10,700.
10,700, the bet from James.
Now that's a more typical kind of raise. The blinds are 12 and 24, so Kenna James has raised about 3 times the big blind.
Matthews not going to have anything to do with this. Cairns with an ace-6.
Very short, and he knows whatever hand he gets involved with could very well be his last, so he's looking for big tickets. Mr. Fitz, on the other hand, has more chips to play with, and he will put in the additional 8,300 to see a flop.
Here is the flop. King 4 deuce, and it helps James.
Now, the fact that there are no straight or flush draws out there at this moment could give Kenna James room to sandbag and slow play. On the other hand, Jerry Fitz has a lot of chips to shoot at, and Kenna James might want to try to build a sizable pot.
Well, it falls to Jerry Fitz now.
James has put in a reasonable 18,000 and change bet. Unfortunately, Jerry Fitz has no prospects.
Pretty good fold, I think, from Jerry Fitz, and Kenna James will take what's there and be happy about it. So James wins this pot, and he still is amongst the chip leaders. We're coming back. Don't go away. Poker.net Aussie Millions. You know, when Michael and I visited the Crown Casino back in January 2006, had the distinct pleasure of dining at Silk's, Melbourne's finest Chinese restaurant. Silk's, a dining experience like no other. With great traditional Cantonese cuisine and impeccable service, this Chinese masterpiece fits in with the Crown appeal. The Asian-inspired design will transport you. Relax and enjoy a drink with friends in a grand Mongolian tent, or private rooms for an intimate meal. Offering stunning views of Melbourne, the main dining room at Silk's is the perfect backdrop for your authentic Cantonese cuisine experience. You're not going to want to miss Silk's in the Crown Towers. Matthews, Queen 9 suited, not going to bother with it. Cairns just hasn't had anything to look at.
And he's been milking that short stack for some time.
Long time, huh?
Yeah, it looks like he really wants to make it into the money, and he's determined to not get involved until he's got some premium tickets.
I suspect Dia will get involved here.
Yeah, Phil Ivey, nobody showed strength in front of him, so he raises with a Queen 7. makes it 8,000. Mr. Dia with a pretty big hand could re-raise here or merely call because he does have position on the great champion. And let's give some respect to Jamil Dia. He is the reigning Aussie Million champion.
That's right.
Cool.
Just calls. And that will get Phil Ivey guessing. James will get out of the way. Kathy Liebert, Jack 6. Forget about it. 2 players to the flop. And here is the flop. Pair of deuces and a jack.
No improvement for either player. Remember, Ivey initially showed strength and Dia merely called him. Dia has the luxury of superior position. He'll get to act second. Phil Ivey does what he's supposed to do here.
And a quick call from Dia. And there's an ace for Dia.
That ace of diamonds completes a flush draw. We know that neither player has diamonds, but as they study each other, that's got to be one of their concerns. Did that diamond help my opponent? Well, Phil Ivey's about to find out. That's a big 40,000 chip bet.
Causes Dia to think a little bit. I can't imagine he's going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I agree, Barry. This is a situation where Jamil Dia has a couple of viable options, and I don't think folding is one of them, obviously.
Cool.
He calls. And wow. King of diamonds. Really?
Man, that's a 4th diamond, so anyone who has a spare diamond laying around in his hand has a flush.
All in.
All in from Phil Ivey.
Phil Ivey bets his last 98,000 or so. This is a tough situation for Jamil Dia. That king gives Jamil Dia 2 pair, but what a scary board. 4 diamonds, a potential straight draw. Jamil Dia needs to reconstruct this hand and try to put his opponent Phil Ivey on a hand. He's got to decide. And I got to tell you, this looks very convincing that Phil Ivey has made a flush. Will Jamil Dia figure it out and eliminate one of our tournament favorites?
Find out. Welcome back to Melbourne, Australia. Partypoker.net, Aussie Millions. Barry Tompkins, Michael Konik alongside, and we've come to that point in this event where the line in the sand has been drawn, and it's been drawn by Phil Ivey. He has gone all in, and you and I, of course, know that Dia has what would be the winning hand, but the question is, what is Dia thinking?
Well, that is a scary board. If you're Jamil Dia, you're looking at that board, and you're looking at Phil Ivey, and you're thinking, what are the possibilities that the great Phil Ivey is bluffing here? I mean, all he needs is a stray diamond of any sort in his hand, a deuce, a stray deuce, the unlikely queen 10. I mean, there's a lot of ways that Jamil Dia's top 2 pair get beaten here. On the other hand, it's going to cost him about 98,000 to win 230,000, so he's getting about 2.4 to 1 on his call.
1 minute, Jamil.
Okay, the tournament director has just informed Jamil Dia that he has 1 minute to make his decision. If he does not act within that minute, his hand will be declared dead. Phil Ivey betraying nothing. Now, the one thing that Jamil Dia has going for him here is if he loses the hand, he knows he will still be in the tournament. It's a huge pot. And boy, he looks like he wants to call, Barry.
10 seconds.
10 seconds.
If he does not act, his hand will be declared dead.
5, 4, 3, 2.
I call. He calls!
Oh,
and Phil Ivey's going to be eliminated.
Bold.
Woo! Wow.
Did you hear what Phil Ivey said? He said, King's full. Little joke that Jamil Dia is having none of.
Wow. And down to the wire.
Well, I thought well played by Ivey and better played by the defending champion.
In a river king of diamond, which made 4 diamonds, a pair of deuces. So I just decided to try to win the pot, and I just moved all in. Probably, I regret doing it now, but you know that's tournament poker. So.
Have to be another day for Phil Ivey. Not going to happen in Australia. Meanwhile, Joe Hacham is all in against Cruz Baca.
And Hachem has his opponent dominated. They both have a king in their hand. Hachem has the ace kicker. Baca has picked up a flush draw, looking for a diamond or a queen. It's a diamond!
Got it. And Baca has eliminated Joe Hacham, the local favorite and the winner of last year's World Series.
Sorry to say that the World Series of Poker champ, hometown champion Joe Hacham has been eliminated.
Wow, in the space of 2 minutes, we've lost 2 of our big favorites in the Aussie Millions.
Joe Hacham is gone.
Every time I got in front, a coin flip situation would come up and I'd get whacked. Every time for 3 days. Today I started off winning the first coin flip and I thought, wow, you know, maybe something will be different today. I got in front and then I got whacked straight away. Bang, bang, bang.
Not to be for Phil Ivey, not to be for either of the Hacham brothers. Tony went out earlier, and now it is Tony who has to comfort his brother Joe. What an evening of poker here in Melbourne, Australia. It is a wrap for us. For my partner, Michael Konik, I'm Barry Tompkins. See you next time.